this is Megan.
And this is Steven.
And this is the Synchrony podcast where we talk about transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness in the church.
Ending loneliness in the church. Yes.
How are you feeling? Tired after all the work you put in the last hour?
Thanks to the nap, I feel great. But took a while to get some tweaks adjusted from the last podcast. So hopefully our sound won't be so bouncy.
Yes, there's a bug in here.
I know,
Hold on.
it's driving me nuts.
Okay, if you're watching the YouTube video and you see us randomly twitching, it's because there's a gnat.
It's very tiny, one singular gnat somewhere.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been a busy day. Our 6-year-old had her birthday party this morning.
Yep.
At a zoo.
Our little fairy.
Yeah, she's so fun. It was great. All her little friends were great. All their parents were great. It was awesome.
It was really cool.
Yeah, they ran around with the animals and
looking at animals. Yeah, it was at a zoo.
Yeah. So we are probably going to be chewing a little bit while we talk today because my wonderful, incredible grandmother, aka Mama, sent us home with banana bread because my kids love her banana bread. And so she made them a whole bundt cake of the banana bread, and we stole some.
That's right.
From them.
It's supposed to be for her birthday, but we're definitely eating it.
Yeah, it's okay. She is continuing the birthday festivities with my parents, so no harm, no foul. It's been a few weeks since we've been in the studio, quote unquote. This is nice.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
I'm glad to be back.
Agreed. So I feel like we have a big topic today that's kind of, it's sort of like something that's been we've been sort of swirling and dancing around for the last, for months. But I feel like it's time for us to name it.
Okay.
Christen it.
Okay.
Circumcise it. No, just kidding.
Consummate it.
No, wrong. Wrong.
All the wrong.
Do you remember, sorry, we're cutting into this. Do you remember at our friend's wedding? And I hope that they listen to this because they do listen to the podcast. We were at our friend's wedding. This was years ago. We had just got married. They got married right after us. And pastor.
Yeah, my pastor was the one preaching it.
Oh, never let him live it down. He was officiating the ceremony and he was trying to say to consecrate this union or whatever. He was talking about, a consecrated marriage, but he definitely said to consummate.
Yeah, but he's talking about consecration here right now.
Right.
So it was when he said consummation, it was a little awkward.
It was hilarious. I hope it's on video somewhere. Let us know, guys, if you're watching this.
Yeah, you know who you are.
If you have it recorded. So I guess this will probably be somewhere in the title of the episode, but I have a hypothesis, or we have a hypothesis.
Yep.
That has kind of evolved from the last couple of years of work we've been doing in the apostolic single space, the observations we've been making, the people we've been talking to, a little bit of statistics, a little bit of demographics, a little bit of, looking over data from other church organizations and kind of trying to understand the landscape that we're in.
Yeah.
And I'm calling it a hypothesis and not like a theory or like a law or something, because it's not concrete. We have not gathered.
Yeah, we do not have the data to prove it.
Yeah, we have not gathered actual scientific data about the existence of this.
Well, enough data to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say what we have now is enough to call it a hypothesis. It's something that needs testing. It's something that needs more critical analysis. But I'm putting it out here because I want to name it so that we can start talking about it. And I also want to hear if other people feel like this is true to their experiences. So that's the goal today, is to name the hypothesis, roll it out to you guys, and see if it jives.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm lovingly kind of calling this in my head the sinkhole hypothesis.
The sinkhole.
So for those of you who do not live in Florida, because not everyone does, right? Yeah. People be trying though.
They really do.
Everybody be moving down here for the lack of state income tax and
snow.
Yeah,
and lack of snow.
I feel like it's more about though the cultural and demographic right now.
They quite literally said, "I do not want to shovel snow."
Yeah,
we're coming down here for the winter.
But there's always been snowbirds. But right now there are an influx of all kinds of people in Florida.
That's true.
Anyway, If you don't live in Florida, you might not live in a place where there are sinkholes. So allow me to explain. A sinkhole happens when you have underground caverns. In Florida, we have an aquifer. So our state is very, very close to sea level, but we have sort of underground freshwater rivers that form, and groundwater from rain and whatever basically is filtered through, all of the substrate of our state, limestone, sand, blah, 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 into these underground rivers. And that's where we get our spring water. That's where we get our wells. Like all of that happens in Florida. And, during times of drought, typically, or in places where, the elevation is raised just slightly, right, and the water level in the aquifer goes down, sinkholes can form, which was when basically there's no water in one of those underground caverns or rivers, right, and it creates a pocket of empty space that can then suddenly collapse inward. And it's very hard to know when that's going to happen. It's not something that happens with a lot of warning. And so people like there have literally been houses and like cars that have just vanished more or less. Like
Yeah.
obviously you can see the debris of it, but it can happen in a matter of minutes and just like the ground literally sort of swallows people up. It's very
Yeah.
scary. Sometimes it's more like a concave type situation, but sometimes it can really just like swallow something. So we're going to use that to describe this phenomenon. And the sinkhole hypothesis is what I'm using to refer to what I believe might be happening with apostolic men that has created both the gender disparity that we see in our churches and also massively contributed to the loneliness in the apostolic movement and loneliness specifically related to not having a partner, not being able to live life in partnership, not being able to date and marry the way that people believe that they should. So that's the sinkhole hypothesis. It's the story of what is happening to our men. And I think before we dive more into this, I have to issue an apology.
Yeah.
Yes. So uh I guess like public intellectual, are we allowed to call ourselves that? I don't that feels a little
We're
lofty.
public.
Public intellect intellect is suspect, we don't
Yeah.
know. I feel
I would
like
call you more the intellectual.
no. I feel like, any
Citizen scientists.
nerds on the internet,
Yeah.
internet dorks, I feel like if anyone is worth their salt, then they have to be willing to say when they got something wrong. And I think when we first started this project, I was very wrong about my sensibilities around demographics
Yeah.
because I was hearing from single women in particular, like, there are just no men. They're just not there. Like, where did all the men go? They vanished. And I was like, that's not true. Like, that can't be true, right?
Yeah.
It can't be that there are just no men. And it's not true that there are no men, right? All the men that are listening to this are like, hey,
Yeah.
like, we're still here. It's not that there are no men. It's not that there are no eligible men. It is that there is a much lower concentration of single men than there are single women.
Specifically in certain age brackets.
Yes, and I think the biggest disparity that we've seen is basically between the ages of like 30 and 45,
Yeah.
really. Um, in the 30 to 45 age range, there is a dearth, a real
We have another theory as to why, but yeah.
yeah, and that's builds into this whole hypothesis, right? Like that particular demographic really of people living in extended singleness, right? There is a really sharp gender disparity between men and women. And there seem to be at least, I don't want to say are as if it's been proven, but based on the data we have, which is skewed because the people we work with are single people who are willing to reach out to a matchmaker. So that is, like
Yeah.
by itself a biasing factor, right? But based on what they're saying about their church congregations, what I'm hearing from ministers, what
Like,
you're
yeah, beginning findings from demographic departments.
yeah, just a little bit of data.
Yeah.
It feels like we can say with some certainty that we were wrong about this idea that there is not a gender inequality when it comes to just numbers in the church. For that age window in particular, there really is. There are significantly more women than there are men. And ladies, if you're listening to this and you're in that 30 to 45 age range, don't panic. There are men out there,
Yeah.
right? But I do think that they are much harder to find. If you don't have
Yeah.
someone in your local congregation, it's really challenging. Okay. So I'm sorry for saying, sorry, I didn't actually apologize when I did any of that. I'm sorry for saying at first that I didn't think that there were gender disparities. If you go back and listen to some of our early demographics podcasts, we reference a lot of studies that have to do with just the overarching demographics of the church or the Pentecostal movement or
Or
evangelical churches in general.
yeah, Christianity in general.
Right. And
Well, that's because
those
where a lot of the research has been done.
sure. And those do demonstrate that the overall gender differential between men and women entirely in the church is not massive, but it doesn't account for marital status.
That's the thing.
Right. So single men and women, there is a larger
Yeah.
gulf.
Yep.
Okay. So what do we think is happening to the men? Let's start from the beginning. What do we think is happening to our boys?
I don't wanna start off this by making another massive claim
Mm,
after just apologizing for making a massive claim.
mhm. This is very much a theory
Yeah,
or
it's
a hypothesis.
yeah, hypothesis. And it's one of these things, it's like we're seeing just from personal experience, we're seeing from people that we're talking to that there is a like accountability and or mentorship and or like lack of connection with men in the church starting as young as teenagers. But I think it gets more and more dramatic,
Mm,
drastic as you get older,
mhm.
especially if your marital status doesn't change.
So what we're noticing is a pattern where men are less likely to stay engaged, actively engaged in the work of the church in the community of the church compared to women. So this isn't to say that no men stay engaged, but compared to women, men are less likely to remain engaged as they transition to adulthood. And unless they build strong family ties to the church community in the form of a marriage, typically,
Yeah.
then it is very, very, very difficult for a man in extended singleness to stay in the church.
Yeah.
Before anyone starts freaking out in the comments. Honestly, go ahead and freak out in the comments because we really
Yeah.
need the comment
Yeah.
engagement.
Yeah. Go ahead. Tell us
Yeah.
what you think.
Yeah, it's fine. Freak out in the comments. Drop comments. We need them. Um, especially if you're male.
Yeah.
Really. Speaking of engagement.
Yeah.
Speaking of engagement. So we know because we have met amazing, excellent men
Yeah.
who are deeply engaged in the work of the church, who are have been single for a very long time, into their 30s, into their 40s, right? Who have never married and have struggled with loneliness in the same way that a lot of our ladies have struggled with loneliness. So it does happen. But I cannot think of a single one of those men who is in that position and has not either returned to the church following a period of backsliding, depending on how long, with various levels of challenge associated with the life that they lived in the world,
Yep.
right? Or a man who does not have deep, 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 and very, very grounding ties with either ministries that they're involved with or other men in the church. And usually both of those things are true.
Yeah.
Men need to have an anchor to stay in the church. I think anyone does, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think single women need anchors too. I think it's easier for those, in some ways, it's easier for women to come by those. So I know that all of this is hypothetical, but I want to take people through a story because I think sometimes it's important to have like a narrative to latch onto,
Yeah.
right? So let's describe the experience of a boy. Okay. Let's make him 12,
Okay.
prepubescent,
Yeah.
right? He's in church.
Well, anyways.
Yeah. Kind of on the cusp, right?
Okay.
On the cusp.
Sure.
Um, and let's say he's been born and raised in church,
Yeah.
right? Family in church,
Yep.
has done all the things, did his summer camp stuff, went to Wednesday night Bible study, sang in kids choir, like involved family in church. Okay.
One season of Bible quizzing.
Yes. A single season of Bible quizzing. Um, we've all been there. Learned half the material, just liked the button and
Yeah.
the pizza afterwards.
That's right.
Totally fine. Normal, normal apostolic kid. Okay. And he gets to around this age of 12. And some things have happened in his life that have already made his relationship to church challenging. We talked about a couple of episodes ago, your experiences with pornography
Yeah.
as a young man.
Yep.
And I think you said you were exposed when you were like, what was it, 10?
And yeah.
Yeah. And you were exposed in like the old fashioned way,
Yeah.
like with like magazines
Yeah.
and like paper.
Wh
Um,
which for the time was kinda surprising, but it was just because of the circumstances, but
yeah,
yeah.
go listen to the episodes. They're really good.
Yeah.
But so let's just say he had a similar experience
Yeah.
where at some point in the last couple of years, he was exposed to pornographic material and he has a cell phone connected to the internet,
Mhm.
right? So as a 12-year-old, let's say this 12-year-old has the Holy Ghost. Let's say he's been
Yeah.
baptized in Jesus' name, right? He's doing his best to live a sanctified life. He has a direct conduit to the most addictive substance you could envision
And you can't overdose on.
that you cannot overdose on. There are no outward signs necessarily of this, um, of engaging with this addictive substance,
Yeah.
right? So his parents aren't aware. His teachers aren't aware. He can go through life and act perfectly together and be exposing himself to pornography on a regular basis. Doesn't mean he has to have a full blown addiction,
Yeah.
but it might be something that he is deeply struggling with already at the age of 12
Yeah.
and has more access to. Like that's like this story so far is not fantastical.
No.
Like,
It's the thing is that sounds like a pretty normal story.
mhm.
Um, I'm sure not everyone was raised as a apostolic, in church their whole life. What you're basically explaining is my upbringing.
Yeah, I mean the upbringing of most of the kids I grew up with.
Yeah. And it's one of those things is that is pretty normal. Like guys could be exposed to pornography for years and years and years and years and not feel safe enough to talk to someone about it. So by the time they get the gusto to talk to someone about it, they're years deep into their addiction
Well, and think about it too.
or exposure.
This kid, as a 12-year-old, is probably just transitioning into the youth group.
Yeah.
So he just came out of Sunday school.
Yeah.
And Sunday
That's crazy
school,
to think.
right? Sunday school might not be where they're talking about pornography
No.
to 12-year-olds
I'm sure
because
there are some proactive youth groups, but
I think there are probably some great Sunday school teachers who recognize the need getting younger and younger,
yeah.
but not everybody does, right? And people want to protect the kids, and you don't always know in a Sunday school room full of kids of different ages what you can say.
Yeah.
So this kid might have been already struggling in silence for a couple of years
Well,
with
let's
this.
let's caveat this. We know people
Mhm.
who were exposed to pornography at the age of 7.
Oh yeah, and what I'm describing here is a very generous scenario,
Yeah,
right?
12 nowadays would be extremely surprising.
Right. Now, and add to the fact, like you said, this we're talking about a kid who was raised in a stable apostolic home. Let's say both parents are still married, right? Like has
Yeah.
a good, all those things could be working in his favor, and he still has this problem. Think about the people you grew up with in the youth group, and add any kind of unstable home environment,
Yeah.
complicated history, challenges mentally or physically, anything else, right? Anything that could
Yeah.
be bullied about.
Statistically, the story that we just talked about is not the case.
It's very sanitized, right?
Yeah.
So this is a sanitized version. So this 12-year-old is already struggling with shame
Yeah.
and guilt about this problem that is endemic.
Crippling.
Yeah.
Crippling guilt.
And I'm not, and pornography is not the root of everything that young people go through, but I cannot emphasize enough how just absolutely rampant it is
Yeah.
in our churches, right? If you are the mother or the father of a son
Or a daughter.
or daughter, yeah, start talking about it yesterday. But so I'm trying to shift away from the details of that, but let's just say that this is the dynamic of this kid's relationship with the church right now. He's been faithful his whole life. He knows that there's expectations that he's supposed to uphold. And he's struggling with secret sin, right? Secret sin that makes him feel very dirty,
Yeah.
that makes him feel very, very wrong because his youth group leaders and his pastoral leadership who grew up in a different generation might not understand exactly how hard it is for him to get away from this.
Yeah.
They didn't have access to the same things he has access to. And he knows that he can get around any guard that he puts up. He knows that, if he tells his mom that he needs covenant eyes, she's gonna take his phone away,
Yeah.
right? And that's his connection to the outside world.
Yeah.
That's how he socializes with his friends. That's how he maintains contact with people. It makes him feel safe. His spaces where he feels the most seen are online spaces now.
Yeah. The thing is he's probably also he or she is probably using the phone for other forms of coping mechanisms too.
Right. We're specifically talking about boys, so right now it's a he, but it
Yeah.
could be a girl's thing too.
Yeah, what I'm saying is like, so that's why they're scared to come up and expose themselves
Mhm.
that they're struggling with this because like there's already so much safety in what they're using the phone for, which is already a whole nother set of problems like that we're talking about. But like
Right.
we're not condoning it. I'm just saying like a justification for why a kid would have such a hard time coming out with this
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, let's just say that this kid, has um a vibrant social media life,
Yeah.
right? We can all poo-poo social media from our stance as 30 somethings, but when we were 12 and 13 and 14, and social media was in its infancy,
Yeah.
it was the coolest place on earth.
Oh yeah.
Like
Who
I
didn't want a MySpace?
oh, 100%. And now it's that much more. So anyone younger than us
Yeah.
has experienced the possibility of recreating themselves in an online space for consumption. And that life is vibrant, right? Being able to have an online life and connect with people and look at things that are constantly interesting. It's got its own addictive capabilities to it.
Yeah.
So this kid is struggling already. He's in a youth group where maybe he's not getting no one's fault, but he's not getting the kind of direct coaching and support he needs. Maybe he doesn't connect well with his youth leadership and he doesn't really find a mentor. He's surrounded by maybe some young married couples in the church, but the men don't seem super approachable or he doesn't really have a reason to go spend time with them. He's not one of the dynamic kids. He's
Yeah.
not one of the life of the party kids.
Yeah.
He's not particularly athletic, right? He's not super sporty. He might be a little bit small, or a little bit chubby. He might be a kid that doesn't come across as cool or funny. He might not be the first one to answer questions in a youth group scenario. He might not be able to crack a great joke. He might not have a dynamic personality. So he's struggling with this sin and he's already starting to isolate himself as a 12 or 13-year-old. He feels awkward and uncomfortable in his body the way that all of us feel awkward and uncomfortable in our bodies when we're 12 and 13. But he also believes deeply that something is wrong with him,
Yeah.
right? He's already struggling with this.
Yeah.
And he's not having men step into his life and say, "Hey, there's a way out of this. I've been where you are and I understand and you're not broken because you're struggling with this."
Yeah.
Right? So let's get a little older. This kid's now a teenager, right? Maybe 14, maybe 15. He's starting to look at being able to drive. He's interested in girls. Girls are not interested in him,
Yeah.
right? He's not particularly physically attractive or intimidating or commanding at this point. He doesn't have musical talent or skill the way that some of the other guys in his church do. The things that would make him stand out to a girl are not things that are talents of his. He's gifted in other ways that don't show up well in a social environment like the one in his youth group, right?
Yep.
Maybe he has a couple of close friends in the youth group that are other guys that are kind of in that same space. But that's if he has a big youth group, right? Where
Yeah.
there
That's a
are
big if.
yeah, where there are there's room for some little groups to form, some subgroups to form. If he's at a small church, he might be the only one, you know,
Or there's gonna be a big age gap between the other kids his age.
right? He might relate better to the kids that he goes to school with
Yeah.
who like the same games or the same activities or the same, comic books or the same characters, insert whatever kind of thing is giving him life and energy. He might connect better with kids that are into that than the kids that he goes to church with.
Yeah.
I hope that as you're listening to this, if you're listening to this as an adult, scroll back in your mental Rolodex really quick to the young people. If you grew up in church, the people that you grew up with, right? And start to kind of remember the faces of the young men who may or may not have fit into the kind of archetype I'm describing,
Yeah.
right?
I'm sorry. There's so many people that don't know what a Rolodex is in here.
Okay, people older than us know what a Rolodex is.
Yeah, I know, but we also have people younger than us listen to this.
Children, if you don't know what is, a Rolodex is this, spinning card deck of contact information. This
Yeah,
is this is
imagine
what
index cards that are on, like, a wheel that can
imagine that
spin.
if every contact in your phone was on a little card that was attached to a couple of metal rings that was stuck in a little holder on your desk, and you could literally
Spin it,
flip it,
yeah,
spin it, and the cards would change. I
yep.
mean, it's like a gramophone or a steam locomotive. It's crazy.
Yeah.
God, we are so ancient.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't see a lot of Rolodexes.
Really?
Yeah,
My parents had one, and I was like, it's fun.
yeah, I mean, we had pagers.
Yeah. I know, yeah, we the pager thing skipped my family for whatever
Oh,
reason.
not us. My dad had a pager for his work
Yeah, that
all the
makes sense.
time.
Yeah, no, we went straight from the car phone in the bag to brick phones.
Yeah,
This is the transition. The children are like, "What?" Anyway,
yeah,
okay, so you now have this young man who's on the fringes of his youth group,
yeah,
right? And he's hearing the same messages that everyone else is hearing about you're called to a purpose, and he's going to youth congress and he's hearing God has, given you X, Y, and Z thing, and he's filled with the Holy Ghost. He's having experiences with God, but he might not really feel like he's called to the things the other kids in the youth group feel called to.
yeah,
He has not heard a voice speak to him about going on missions trips. And he
yep,
doesn't have maybe the money to just pay to go to another
yeah, which
country.
a lot of people don't.
Right. It's expensive to go try out missions in the way that we want kids
Yeah,
to. Right. Um, he doesn't feel like he's called to preach. And the idea of being behind a pulpit makes him feel like he wants to throw up.
yeah,
Right. He doesn't feel like he could see himself doing youth ministry or doing the ministries that he's had examples for around him.
yeah,
And it seems like most of the men in his church are in that kind of ministry.
yeah,
It seems like most of the men who mean anything in the church are men who stand behind pulpits or who teach.
yeah,
And he doesn't feel like he could do that. He can't see himself doing that. He doesn't play the drums. He doesn't sing tenor, play bass guitar. He could kind of see himself doing maybe like sound or working at the computer, or sometimes he'll volunteer and help like run like pro presenter or whatever it is, right? But he doesn't feel deeply connected to that as a ministry.
mhm.
That doesn't feel like a calling to
Oh,
him.
sure, no one's called a pro presenter. I'm
There's
bitter.
Stephen was not called to pro. If you feel
No,
called to pro presenter, God bless you.
no,
Um,
I was easy worship, and I like that so much more. Pro
Easy worship.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like pro presenters with the Baptist youth. No,
No,
just kidding.
yeah, no. No,
Sorry, sorry, Baptists.
no,
I apologize.
pro presenter's fine. It's just, there's
Yeah,
I have resentment I need to pray about.
yeah. Stephen has been harboring unforgiveness against pro presenter. Anyway, so you now have this kid who has been struggling with the feeling of insufficiency,
Yeah,
of brokenness, of insecurity around this sin that he's continuing to struggle with, right, as
yeah,
a teenager for years now. He has a lack of connection to other men that he feels like understand him and see him, and he doesn't have a vision for how he's going to become a man in the church, right? He knows that one of the ways that you can sort of become like a cornerstone of the church is to marry and start a family and raise a family in the church. And he's tried to talk to some girls, and it's been real awkward for him. And girls are kind of confusing, and no one's ever talked to him about how to talk to a girl. None of his youth
yeah.
leaders
He may
have.
have had the talk with his parents.
Yeah, awkward.
Yeah,
And the messaging that he got was basically like,
probably years after he already was looking at porn.
right. And the messaging that he got was probably like, you know, don't do anything stupid, right?
Yeah,
Like keep your pants on.
yeah, yeah,
He might not have been ever taught about how to start a friendship with a girl.
yep,
He might have gone to a church where he was expressly told not to interact with young women.
yep. Or he may have had examples in church of men who go to church who haven't been fully convicted about the way they think about women
Uh-huh.
and still set unrealistic, ungodly examples of how to treat a woman.
We're talking about sexism?
Yeah, I mean, well,
Yeah.
no, that too, but also just the typical like Western male ideologies
Mm.
of what women are supposed to look like, be like.
Yes, because fun fact, The Holy Ghost does not deliver you from sexism unless you allow it to.
Yes.
Doesn't deliver you from racism either. So both of those things need to be dealt with between you and Jesus.
That's right.
Yeah, no, so he might not have great healthy examples of how to interact with women,
Yeah,
right? Um, if all the people in his church are like youth, married people or widows, right?
yeah,
He's not seeing examples of like how to date. And he might come from a place where they were like, boys and girls sit on the opposite sides of the church and never touch each other and don't breathe in each other's direction and never stand beside each other on the altar. And all that's fine. All those rules are fine.
yeah.
But the messaging that he's gotten over time is women are dangerous. Women are mysterious. Women are a threat to me. He's also hearing, and this is not an excuse because these stories are important, but he's also being flooded with media stories about men making mistakes online
Yeah.
that follow them for the rest of their lives, right?
Oh, sure.
Being labeled as creeps, being labeled as stalkers, being all these different things.
That also the same messages are being told of, like, men have no ability for self-control,
Right.
and that boys will be boys, and they make unwise decisions when it comes to sexual things,
And
and
he's
so
already
basically, like, he's being told that maybe I shouldn't trust myself.
right. And he already doesn't trust himself
Yeah.
because he's been trying to get rid of this pornography problem since he was 12.
Yep.
And he's been prayed through at every altar and he's prayed about it at every camp.
And heard every message about how I shouldn't be looking at it.
And he's had young, ministers lay hands on him and pray for deliverance. And he's believed at various times that he's kicked it and it's come back.
Yep.
So he doesn't trust himself to not be stupid with a woman.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to communicate.
Yeah, he hasn't proven in his mind, he hasn't proven to himself that he should be trusted.
Right. So that's his experience on the cusp of entering sort of the challenging years that come when young men get jobs and cars,
Yeah.
right? So he turns
Responsibility.
well, not just responsibility, but freedom,
No, that's what I
right?
mean. Like, that's what it should be is responsibility, but it's like he's given all this power with no regulation.
Yeah, so let's say he turns 16 and
Yeah.
he gets a job at I don't know, a Walmart, at a grocery store, at a restaurant, whatever. And he's working McDonald's. He's not making great money, but he's living at home.
Yeah.
So he's now got some disposable income. He's working part-time. Maybe he has a little car that is able to get him around. His parents are doing their best to kind of support him. He's not struggling. He's a middle class kid.
Yeah.
So he's got a job, he's got a car, he's got a little bit of money in his pocket. And now what he has are choices about where he spends his time and what he spends his money on. And if you're a young man that's been battling insecurity and doesn't understand the vision of how you could see yourself as a future, having a future in the church, right? The Bible says, without vision, the people perish. You
Yeah.
don't have a picture of how to be successful in the church.
Yeah.
By the way, if we were to say that this was a young man of color,
Yeah.
that
That's a whole nother story.
that having a picture of success for a young man of color in a predominantly white church, come at me if you disagree, is is I mean, it's paralyzing,
Yeah.
right? I won't get on that soapbox right now.
That's a
So
different podcast.
it's a different podcast. So he has no vision for
Yeah.
where he can go. He doesn't know how to he's hoping that he'll have a girl best friend one day that, he can get to know really well and she'll accept that he's really into, I don't know, graphic novels
Yeah.
and be cool with the fact that he really likes to play Halo a lot,
Yeah.
maybe play Halo herself, right?
Yeah, we're definitely talking about a 90s kid right now.
Yeah, right.
We're not talking about a
Well,
current
yeah,
kid.
that's the kid those are the kids that I'm speaking to
Yeah.
because the 90s kids are the 30-year-olds now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the ones that we're talking about here. He wants someone who doesn't threaten his own insecurities,
Yeah.
right? He wants a girl that he can connect with easily as a friend so that the transition into relationship is not intimidating because he doesn't know how to navigate that.
Yep.
He is so scared of even having a girl that he likes because how to get her from being a point of interest to an actual relationship is completely foreign to him.
Yep.
No one's ever taught him that,
Yeah.
right? Um, so
At least not most likely taught well.
not explicitly,
Yeah.
right? He might have a combination of examples of relative levels of badness,
Yeah.
you know? So that's the point that he's in as a teenager with some money in his pocket and a car to drive around. And I want to help people understand how fragile this young man's position is right now. Because very few things have to happen in order for this individual's connection to the church to completely dissolve, right?
Yeah.
And all the things that I'm about to say are common things that happen to teenagers.
Yeah.
So one is relationship potential from the world.
Yeah.
He's in online spaces. There's some girl that he meets on some platform or that goes to his school or that works at his part-time job, and she's really pretty and she seems really cool, and he gets to know her because they're together all the time. It's non-threatening, and she thinks he's amazing
Yeah.
because he's a good kid and he's a church kid and he has a great
Yeah,
family.
that's the thing is like I heard this said once that a guy who is even partially raised with a moral grounding
Mhm.
in the world looks like a diamond in the rough
Yeah,
because they're usually focused. They usually have some level of
right.
like character that is like honorable.
Yeah.
They usually are polite. There's some level of politeness. So like it's just compared to someone who has no moral upbringing at all, there's usually a big difference in terms of I don't want to say appeal, but
Mhm.
I've heard that that's very not proven, but just from my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not hard to imagine, right? You got this good church kid who grew up in an upstanding family. He's doing the right things. He's got a great head on his shoulders. A girl in the world who has seen the disasters in the lives of
Yeah,
young men around her, whose lives and families are much more turbulent, could see him as a really great, stable potential partner
yeah,
and be okay with demonstrating some interest because she didn't grow up in a church that told her, by the way, men are the only ones who can pursue,
yeah.
right? And she's okay with sending the first DM, and she's okay with saying, "Hey, do you want to go out?" Or with pursuing him in a way that might be more overtly sensual
Yeah,
than a church girl would feel comfortable with.
yeah.
So that's one thing that could be destabilizing. I think another destabilizing factor could be a shame overwhelm, like
Shame? Oh,
shame.
okay.
Like we've been talking about this typical kid is probably wrestling with some addiction,
Yeah,
right? And let's just say that that continues to build up. We talked about a while ago how um you can't live in the cognitive dissonance of believing that this thing is wrong and it's sinful and that good people don't do this thing and having yourself be addicted to this thing and trying to believe that you're good.
yeah.
So you have to make a choice at some point. Am I going to choose that I am a good person and I'm going to force myself to not do this thing, which, as we've talked about, is incredibly difficult when we're talking about pornography?
Especially when when the loneliness factor and they feel like no one else is struggling with it.
100%. Or are you going to reconcile your fact to the idea that, well, I must not be a good person then?
Yeah,
I must not be someone who was cut out for this God thing. I must
or
not,
good enough.
right. I can't stay saved, right? I can't stay clean. So I must not be cut out for this. And you get into this cycle of overwhelm that I think takes out a lot of young men because even if that's not the full reason why they leave, I think it makes them much more fragile.
Yeah, that's not taken into account. Like if all of this is already believed about themselves and then
Mhm.
introduce one little bit of church hurt.
That
You
was gonna
know?
be my next point is,
Yeah,
it because like, offenses come in the church,
yeah,
right? We're humans,
yeah,
and teenage boys make messes,
yeah,
right? Teenage boys get into trouble, teenage boys get yelled at
yeah,
by older men in the church,
yeah.
you know?
I mean, not yelled at, but like as there should be some level of accountability though. So like
Yeah,
that definitely needs to be there. But if they already believe this narrative that they're not good enough and they're not
right.
worth the investment, and they see people
Mhm,
have if they have really bad experiences, like justifiably bad experiences, like I'm saying, like ones that should not have happened,
mhm,
then they go, okay, well now other people believe that too.
right.
So now let me just go ahead and try this out over here.
And bullying is a thing in the church,
100%.
right?
Yes.
So if this kid is overweight, if this kid has
It shouldn't be.
it shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
If this kid has horrible acne, if this
Yeah.
kid has insert any other very common challenge of teenagers in the US,
Yeah.
right? And there's just one too many backhanded comments about it, right?
It's probably coming from other members of the youth group too.
Could be coming from other members of the youth
Yeah.
group, could be coming from older people, could be coming from well-meaning church grandmothers who have no filter.
I think kids are ruthless, man.
Yeah, that could be happening, and it only takes it there's a straw that breaks the camel's back where if this person's already been feeling isolated and already been on the fringes, it just takes one more person saying, "You're not one of us."
Yeah.
Whether those aren't their words.
Yeah, that's not hopefully not what they're actually saying, but that's
Right.
probably how it feels.
It can just be if we work with people who are on, the ASD spectrum, right?
Yeah.
If they don't relate well with other people,
Yeah.
if you're someone who's living with neurodivergence, you can feel already one of the key indicators is that you feel like sort of like an alien in your own skin. You always feel like you're pretending. You never feel like you're really seen for who you are. And you can really come to believe that no one understands me. No one cares about me,
Yeah.
right? If that isolation has been happening for years, it takes one comment. And that kid has a car and that kid has his own money. And his mama probably can't make him come anymore when he's 16. Really. She can yell and scream and
Yeah.
take away things,
Yeah,
right?
but just because they're actually physically in the building doesn't mean emotionally and mentally he's present there anymore.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents really just don't have that control at that point,
Yeah.
and
And at this point, we're not talking about parenting strategies. We're not talking
mm,
about any of that stuff. We're talking about like a really broad overview of the general male experience from someone who is in a relatively comfortable lifestyle.
right, right. So any of these factors and 1,000 others that I didn't even mention
Yeah.
could impact this young man during this time, and I cannot stress how fragile of a position this is. And I want to recognize that young women go through a lot of the same things, like they have a lot of the same experiences and contingencies, but for whatever reason, and I don't know exactly, maybe we could talk about this. I don't know what exactly the reason is. Young women have an easier time staying. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because there are more places where young women can envision themselves in the church.
Yeah.
I think that the narratives that we're given as women are different. There's not as much of an expectation.
There's a different level of expectation
Mhm.
for where you need to be spiritually to
Mm.
have purpose.
Ooh, say more about that. You framed that really well.
Um, for instance, most most of the positions that are presented to you as a teenager in terms of where your ministry will invest into you
Mm.
is when you feel a call to the ministry, air quotes ministry of specifically behind a pulpit,
Pulpit ministry,
whether it
right.
be missions or whether it be like general licensing. Understandably, the ministry only has so much time to account to other people.
Mm.
And what better way to reproduce the church than to invest into people who also want to reproduce the church in that way? Right? I'm using it as a general. I'm saying if giving the ministers the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
think that's generous, and
Yeah.
we all know that there's also a cultural, um I think we could say this without sounding like we're criticizing the church. There's a cultural hierarchy.
Yeah. Again, we are fully sold and bought out to the apostolic faith. So we don't want you guys to
Yeah,
think that
nobody
we're
nobody doubt that. We
no.
need the
We
ministry.
we absolutely need
The
it.
fivefold ministry
But
is the reason why the church exists.
yeah, but
But
we're
we
talking
as humans put a cultural price on it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, from a perspective of a teenager that feels that way,
Mhm.
right? I'm struggling with all of this sin. Let's say maybe he did try to reach out and have some sort of like cry out moment
Mhm.
to maybe another young man his age, or maybe someone slightly older, or maybe he did talk to someone and maybe that person just didn't understand, or maybe they're struggling with it themselves and they didn't feel worthy to be able to help this kid, right? Like
Yeah.
they then the only path forward for air quotes success
Mm.
to feel like you are reinvesting into the kingdom is
Mm.
behind a pulpit or playing music.
What I hear you say is that young men feel that they have to earn a place in the church.
Um,
They have to earn a place of prestige or success. Like,
well, there needs to be a certain level of spirituality.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Like,
saying. They have to spiritually earn it. They have to be at a certain level before they're allowed
yeah,
to step into that.
yeah, I guess a certain, like, criteria or a certain level of, like, growth has to be at a certain
Sure.
point, which we understand, like,
I'm not gonna caveat it because people get
me
it,
and
like,
Megan understand that, like, there is grace and we all fail and we all fall short of the
yeah,
glory
we're
of God,
talking to
like,
apostolics, like,
yeah, like, we understand all that stuff.
we get this, but what you're saying is that we have expectations of what it takes to be someone on a platform,
Yeah,
and they are higher expectations,
yeah,
and young men who feel that they're constantly falling short can't see themselves achieving that. Does that
yeah,
sound fair?
yeah, yeah, and with no path forward
Right.
and no hope given.
Mhm.
And then the other ministries that men generally have access to are, like we already said, music,
Mhm.
which also has its own level of capability, right? If you're not musically talented or you don't have access to pay for drum lessons and maybe your church doesn't have the ability to teach,
Right.
whatever. Um,
We say
s-
drums because, drums are the only way men are involved in music that's manly enough.
no,
Insert other random stereotypes.
yeah, exactly.
No
Is
offense to the drummers.
being an usher,
Sure.
um, helping on men work days
Right, doing lawn maintenance,
and
bus ministry.
sound and
Mhm.
media.
Yeah. You have technology or you have sort of manual masculine skills,
Yeah.
which is a shame
And
because
there is Sunday school, but again, there's a certain level of, as there should be with Sunday school, like there
uh-huh.
needs to be a certain level of understanding of the word. And like there needs to be, as a
Sure.
Sunday school teacher, I mean, specifically, there has to be a
Well,
certain level of,
and I think we target married couples for Sunday school teaching or single young women because single women tend to be seen as safe
yeah.
around children. And
Well, and yeah, as the educators and also,
right.
um,
I think there's also just cultural stereotypes where
sure.
women are seen as nurturers,
Yes.
right? And I understand that everything we're spouting off here are completely stereotypical,
Yeah.
and
These
they
are
do
very broad
they
brush,
do not
like,
apply to every church, every scenario. Of course, we have a massive and wonderful diversity of people working in all facets of the church, and there are places, plenty of places for anyone to contribute into a church. But what
yeah,
I'm describing is not a foreign
this
concept.
isn't. So,
And if we're talking to apostolics, I know you all know what we're talking about.
yeah.
Like this isn't something that's going to surprise someone who's gone to an apostolic church for more than
No.
10 years.
Yeah, we're not saying all churches aren't hitting it out of the park. Like I
Right.
was raised in a church where this was still even a little bit of a struggle and we had so many areas to plug in.
You had
Like
yeah, yeah.
I like the setup and tear down, which again, that's kind of like we were in a very unique circumstance in that where we had to set up and tear down every single Wednesday and Sunday. And then on top of that, we had an awesome armor bearing program.
Right.
Which, if so, like, there was a level of servantry where you didn't feel like I didn't have to be able to preach, but I could still serve the ministry. I could still do all these things. I can work behind the scenes. So, like, there was an awesome background, but even with that,
Mhm.
it still felt like that in my own shame and guilt and fear, the only path for success was behind a pulpit.
Sure. And what we're trying to describe here is the sinkhole that
Yeah.
opens up under I think, a large percentage of our young men
Yeah.
and swallows them. And that sinkhole could be initiated by a whole host of things in an individual's life. But my point is that our young men are in a place of high fragility
Yeah.
when they're entering adulthood. It's a period of time where it does not take much to destabilize their connection to the church body. And as we talked about, like you can't heal in isolation. You can't improve in isolation. You have to be connected to the church in order to heal and to grow. So what we find is and it's interesting because I remember talking to someone, this is an anecdote, but I think it's fascinating. I remember talking to someone about this hypothesis, and she happens to be someone who works with a district camp. So she works for the district in her state, a very highly populated apostolic state, and she has done camp registrations. And I was saying, I don't know when it is that we're losing the men. Is it happening when they're 25? Is it happening when they're 18? And she's like, "Oh no, it's before that." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I think it's between the ages of 14 and 16." I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because up until that point, camp enrollments for girls and boys are almost equal. And when it gets to like teen camp, all of a sudden it changes and half of the boys drop off and the girl population is much, much higher." So something is happening during this period of time between like late teenage to early adult where our young men are their attention, their focus, their heart is just being competed for. And I believe that the the goal of the enemy is to use that fragile period to pull them away.
Yeah.
A sinkhole can open up under a young man without a lot of doing. It doesn't take much and completely suck them out of the church. And I believe that that's happening. I believe that if they don't have a handful of things to stabilize them, that that is the likely scenario for our young men.
Yeah.
Okay, so we only have a few minutes left before we have to wrap this. I want to talk about the things that keep men
Yeah.
because we do have some, the handful of men that we've talked to who have navigated extended singleness have had some unique characteristics to them. And I want to talk about what those might be, right? Um, and there's a handful, and there's probably tons of things that help with this thing, but let's talk about the big hitters.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is maybe the most critical thing that churches can do to keep their young men?
Have some sort of way to establish connection to help the young man know he's not alone.
Connection with who?
Oh, men with men, like younger men with older men, um, different generations being able to connect, whether married, single,
Mm,
having a way to talk about life in a healthy, godly way without continuing like we were talking about, sexist reiterations of what the world talk about.
mm.
Um, and a way to build up young men and give them a path forward.
So connecting younger men with healthy older men.
Yes.
What does that look like? Because I think you and I have seen a few small examples of it, really, in some
Yeah.
churches that do it well. But when I say connecting younger men with healthy older men, spiritually healthy,
Yeah.
mentally healthy, emotionally healthy. I don't know if y'all know this, but we have a
Yeah.
lot of unhealthy people,
Yeah. Unhealthy people in general, but creating spaces where men can be vulnerable
Mm,
and transparent with each other.
mhm,
I think every church is going to be a little different on how they're going to build that out.
mm,
Um, but creating a space where there can be vulnerability and transparency of saying, hey, I'm 45 years old.
mm,
And the other day, I was tempted to look at pornography.
mhm,
It would blow that 12-year-old version of
mhm.
me, that 15-year-old version of me's mind,
Right.
and make that person feel so much more attainable. Because I also see that same guy that said that is also the same guy that I see bringing people to church that he doesn't know.
Right.
Is also the same guy seeing an incredible father to his kids.
Right.
Is also the guy that occasionally goes up and says a 5-minute sermonette.
Right.
Like that guy is now relatable to me.
And you can, as this young kid, envision a future that's
Yeah.
attainable,
Yes.
where I don't have to be perfect to
Yeah.
be a man of God.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing, young men need examples of imperfect, holy masculinity
Yes.
because godly masculinity is not perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know why this makes me so emotional. I think it's because, like, I can think of dozens of examples of young men who fell through the floor, who had, from the outside, like everything working in their favor in the sense of the resources available to them, the
Yeah.
churches they were in, the preachers they had preaching into their lives. And none of that mattered, you know?
Yeah. The thing is I think what's been a big story that we've been perpetuating
Mm,
and borrowing from the world
uh-huh.
is men have to tough it out, rub some dirt in it all the time. I'm not saying
Yeah.
there's not times you have to grind, but there's this like shove it down. Don't think about your emotions. Don't talk about them because they make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And what happens is this: you're creating generation after generation and after generation of silos
Yes.
of men who say, God, It's me and you only,
Yeah,
and if it doesn't work,
nobody else gets to see any of
not
this
even my
mess.
wife,
Yeah, and
not even my kids,
right, and then
not even my pastor.
15 years later, I'm working with that wife in synchrony because of the pornography addiction that blew up their marriage.
And because also he sees that guy right next to him
Mhm.
that is probably behind a pulpit preaching all the time is someone who's really aspirational to him is actually struggling with the same things that guy is
Right,
statistically
in silence.
in silence.
Yeah,
Because and we're not just harping on pornography because let's talk about anger.
yeah,
Let's talk about like frustration and bitterness and wrath. Like let's
yeah.
talk about this like vibrato of like
Bravado,
huh?
bravado.
Bravado.
Vibrato is,
Yeah,
"Oh!"
no, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
That too.
Bravado.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Bravado of like, I have to do this by myself.
Yeah.
And if there's anything, what was Jesus a perfect example of?
He put 12 dysfunctional boys together into a
Yeah.
ragtag band of homeless dudes.
And taught them how to be vulnerable
Right,
and said, hey, you're not just a fisherman.
right,
You're not just a tax collector.
right.
You are so much more than that. And was able to be transparent and vulnerable with them and taught them vulnerability.
Imagine a group of our young men being pulled together like that, and Jesus looking at one of them out loud in front of all of his friends and saying, "Peter, do you love me?
Yeah.
Peter, do you love me?
Yeah.
Peter, do you love me?" Like, the kind of vulnerability that
Yeah.
requires. Man, I'm a mess today. Oh, it's just something that I feel so passionate about because
Yeah.
it's like, for whatever reason right now, I feel like we have a bird's eye view to this whole process and the impacts of it. Okay, we're gonna have to talk more about all the follow through effects of this later. But so intergenerational connections with men, vulnerable connections with men. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean an annual men's breakfast
Yeah. Doesn't
or
mean cold pancakes every once in a while.
right,
And
or a semi-annual deep sea fishing trip. Like,
I'm talking about twice a month, maybe
yeah,
more. Maybe if you can, I know this is
weekly,
hard weekly,
right?
like create it because I'm telling you, y'all, this will become a life raft.
It's
This will
100%.
become a life
It's
raft
an anchor.
in
It's
the
the thing
middle
that
of an
holds them.
ocean of loneliness. Loneliness isn't just for people who are single,
Yeah.
people who are single who are struggling.
Yeah.
This is also for men who are also married who still feel incredibly lonely in in this journey of guilt and shame.
Yeah. So intergenerational vulnerable connections between men.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Our young men need to own something in the church, and it doesn't have to be a pulpit.
No.
It doesn't have to be their own department. It can be a Sunday school classroom. It can be a set of tasks, or it can be the opportunity for them to invent a niche for themselves.
Yeah.
If God has put that young man in your church, God has given him some capabilities that should be used.
Yeah.
And it
And he
is,
does not have to be the perfect example of a Christian to be able to fulfill that role. And
no.
the thing, you know what? He's gonna mess up. He's gonna make mistakes.
Well, here's the thing. We don't even know because we haven't talked to him. That's the thing.
What I'm saying is there needs to be that level of understanding that he can mess up and there's grace.
Yeah, I mean, within
Like,
reason, you gotta have boundaries and
sure,
you gotta have
I know,
standards.
I know. I'm not saying, yeah, yeah. I'm not saying have no boundaries, but
I'm saying there are some times where the task that would really make a young man feel deeply connected to something doesn't have to be something with high stakes,
yeah,
right? For years, my dad's main job at the church for the longest time was filling up pitchers of water for the ministry before service. And my dad is like the best Christian I know, but if everything in his life had burned down, right, and he didn't wanna go to church or he was whatever, he still had to get there before service to fill up the jugs of water,
yeah,
right? And he was diligent about it.
yeah,
And that's a small thing, but, like, it doesn't have to be manual labor, it doesn't have to be busy work, it doesn't you don't have to come up with a dumb thing for them to do.
yeah,
It does take talking to them and understanding who they are and eliciting some of their capabilities and talents and God-given giftings, and it might be something unconventional,
yeah,
right? We have a guy in our church who, um, in some ways, I think he fits a lot of the stereotypes that I'm describing, and he managed to stay, and build a beautiful family in the church, but he's an artist, and not like an not like a train like, not like an artist that that sells art. He used to love like graphic art when he was a
Oh, yeah,
kid,
yeah,
and he would draw and he would color. He is the best set designer
yeah.
for our dramas, for our VBSs. He painted this beautiful full hallway mural in our church for the Sunday school department.
Not by himself, but yes.
But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he's an artist.
yeah,
They found a way to optimize his unique giftings. It doesn't have to be anything showy. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be behind a pulpit, but they have to have ownership. They have to see an opportunity for them to investment. The Bible says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And it doesn't just mean money. It means where you put the things that you're passionate and treasure about, right? Where you put the things that are important to you, that's where your heart will be. And when you can give young men a place to invest into the kingdom, they can envision themselves there.
yeah.
Then they're building a legacy. It's not just about them sitting on a pew. And I know none of this is easy.
No, and I don't want anyone, any pastor or any minister to listen to this. They think like that we just got done bashing you the whole time. We're not.
Yeah.
We know that there's limited resources. We know that there's complications to running a church. Like, I understand that. But this is an area that, if gone unchecked, the the world is filling this void.
Yes.
And if we do not tackle this, we will keep on gushing out waves and waves of men out of the
Right.
church.
Hemorrhaging them.
And the
Yeah.
thing is we even have men that are in the church and that are technically pillars of the church who are still crippled with
Hmm.
loneliness
Yeah.
and crippled with needing this. So I'm telling you, y'all, like, this is so important to be really tackling. We'll address in our next podcast about some ways that we personally plan on trying to do something to create community around this. And so basically, so next week we'll cover more on things
Yeah.
that
This
we
is going to
want to,
have to be. I'm sorry for all the two-parters lately, guys. We just have a lot of feelings.
yeah,
So I guess takeaways for this portion before we cut it off and go to the next portion is our like the sinkhole hypothesis centers around the idea that we are losing men because they enter a very fragile state as young men in the church.
yeah,
And men in that fragile time period have to be anchored into the church by some things. It is easier for them to fall away and get sucked into the sinkhole than it is for young women, even though we know that happens to them too sometimes. And even though we don't understand the reasons why this is happening, we're pretty confident that it is happening in churches all across the country and probably in yours. So, next time we'll talk about community and how we can form community in a modern world that isn't like church was in the 50s and 60s,
yeah,
right? And some other strategies maybe that we have cooking to try to address this at a systemic level. But if you feel like this resonates with you, if you feel like this is reflective of churches that you've been part of, or if this speaks to your own experience as an apostolic man, or if it doesn't, if you've been the opposite, if you feel like what we're saying is wrong, I'm not just saying this for YouTube engagement. We want to hear from you.
yeah.
Please comment and let us know or send us a message on
If you
social
have really
media.
big feelings, don't fit the YouTube box,
Yeah.
send us an email.
Yeah. We want to talk about it because
Yeah, we want to have conversation
this is
about
a
it.
hypothesis that could be misproven.
Yeah,
Um, but it feels like it's a thing.
yeah. Hey,
Hey,
I love you.
I love you too.
I know it's been really emotional the last week or so.
Yeah.
She's not pregnant.
I'm not thank you. Not pregnant, just
Yeah,
weepy.
yeah.
Ugh. I've been yeah, I've been emotional this last week. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I
Things are good.
yeah. Um, this has been fun.
Yeah, I always come away from these conversations with you feeling grounded and purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you too. Thank you for setting up all the lights and the cameras,
Yeah. Sorry for
even
it
though
taking an hour.
it literally took an hour, but
Yeah.
it looks great. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I'm gonna have to not have a swivel chair because I just sit here and swivel the whole time.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get you some kind of different fidget.
Like, ratchet strap me down to a stool.
Yeah. Thank you, Mama, for providing the banana bread that fueled this episode.
Yep. Brought to you by Mama Geiger.
Yeah. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.